Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound here with you. Thank you for joining me for another Spirit Review video. And today we've got a special bottling from the St. George Distillery, and they've been distilling there in Alameda, California since 1982. So in 2012 they celebrated 30 years of distilling, and they created this special bottling. It is the St. George Single Malt Whiskey 30th Anniversary Edition. There was only 715 of these created, so they might be a little hard to find, but I know I've seen a few still out there, so if you're really inclined, you can probably get hold of one. Now, what makes this bottle so special is that they actually use their oldest whiskey that they had in the warehouse, 15 years old, from their very first single malt distillation, probably being aged in reused bourbon barrels. Then they use the majority of this blend is actually a 13-year-old whiskey that has been double barreled in Pear eau de vie barrels. They do a Pear eau de vie there on site, so they decided, you know what, let's take some of this Pear brandy, bottle it, but then we'll reuse that barrel to age some of our whiskey. That's the 13-year-old. So we're going to get this big Pear influence on this one. Then they decided, you know what, let's use some young whiskey to help balance out some of this older stuff. They use a 7.5-year-old whiskey that is, again, pretty much straight up single malt whiskey aged in reused bourbon barrels. Finally, the youngest is a 5-year-old. The 5-year-old has been aged in some port wine barrels, so we're also going to get this port wine influence. I'm very curious to see how Pear brandy influence is going to complement, or we'll see if it complements, that port wine. That's probably going to be some, deep, rich red fruits and plums. But we'll see about that here shortly. Let me go ahead and show you the actual color on this one. Very nice, pretty deep in color, deep gold, very, very nice. Alright, on the nose. Wow. Immediately right up front, first thing you get, bang, sweet pear. Fair amount of grain in there as well. It reminds me of a very nice, like a Highland malt, if you're talking Scotch whiskey. A very nice Highland malt, or almost a Speyside in the way it gets very floral and perfumey. Okay. Past that, you're getting beyond that pear. There's a little bit of a very ripe banana. There's also that bourbon barrel influence is coming through because I'm getting a lot of vanilla, brown sugar. It's very close to being, I would almost call that maple syrup. Subtle hint of mint. And a very, very nice sweet tobacco. Very light though. It's not like you find on some bourbons where it's really big, transition into sweet, big tobacco. It's not like that. It's a very faint sweet tobacco on that finish, but it is in there. Okay. Before we get to the nosing, I wanted to show you this. I have it off to the side. It comes in this beautiful little box, by the way. Just a gloss piano black, suede line, beautiful box. Like I said, only 715 of them made, but let's go ahead and see if it's actually worth it on the taste. Wow. It's almost a perfect balance of an old and young whiskey, because it comes off very smooth, semi-sweet, and very soft, but then there's a little bit of it's not hot, but there's a little bit of warmth that kind of livens everything up. The pear right away is what you first notice. Right as soon as it enters your mouth, you get this very nice sweet grain, but then immediately, whereas a typical Scotch would just start fading into the grain note, and then right into probably a tobacco leaf or some kind of cigar box on the finish. This one immediately transfers right into fruit. So you get that pear. It's almost, it's pear brandy right away. Complemented perfectly with a little bit of mint. A little bit of green apple as well. Plum coming in on that mid palate. Now we're starting to creep into that. Definitely there's a little bit of that sweet tobacco on the finish. And it's very soft. Pear. Gets a little bit of warmth. There's also a little bit of spice kicking up, right? That's that warmth kicking up is the spice. I'm not going to call it cinnamon like you would on a bourbon where it's this big spicy cinnamon note. It's more of a nutmeg, so it's a cinnamon. Actually, it's more like an allspice, so it's like cinnamon, nutmeg, and clove all together right there in the middle. As that pear kind of, it doesn't peter out, but it kind of fades just a bit. There's a little bit of orange peel creeping in, almost like a very fine Grand Marnier feel in the mid palate. That's what it is. As that orange peel is creeping in Grand Marnier, we're all talking mid palate here. There's also a bitter chocolate feel. It reminds me, again, I typically call it Mexican chocolate because it's kind of a bittersweet chocolate that has a lot of cinnamon and spices in it. That's what I get right there in that mid palate, along with the plum, and it's starting to fade out again, right into that very nice sweet tobacco. The pear is still lingering through the finish. Wow. Overall, it's a spectacular whiskey. It's very unique. I can't think of another single malt that's going to be like it. So in that aspect, it may definitely be worth the retail price. Retail is around $400. I actually found this one for $300, so if you shop around, you can get it closer to my range. I'm not sure if that's what you're interested in, but again, this is something you won't find in anybody else. I mean, I have Macallan 30 and such, but it's not the same. It's just different. I'm not saying it's better, but it's different, and it is very, very fine whiskey. So I hope everybody enjoyed this review. Thank you for watching, and cheers.